Welcome to another explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here today because we are looking at something truly massive. Just think for a second about how wildly chaotic the natural world actually is. I mean, we share this planet with literally everything, from microscopic bacteria living in boiling hot springs all the way to giant redwoods, jumping spiders, and blue whales. How do we even begin to make sense of all that? Well, biological classification is essentially mankind's ongoing, monumental attempt to organize that crazy diversity into a neat, logical filing system. It's basically nature's ultimate filing cabinet, and today, we're going to yank open every single drawer. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the historical quest to sort life, and then we'll journey through the 5 major kingdoms. We'll hit the extreme survivors of MONERA, the unpredictable Protista, the recycling fungi, and of course the familiar plants and animals. And finally, we're going to enter the biological twilight zone with the real rule breakers, viruses and prions.
So, Section 1, the quest to sort life. From basic survival right up to a scientific system.
You know, early humans categorized organisms based purely on survival needs. They basically just asked, hey, can I eat this? Can I use it for shelter? Will it make a good coat? But obviously, as our scientific sorting system evolved, things had to change. Back in the ancient era, Aristotle took the very first real swing at a scientific approach. He kept it super simple, right? Plants were just trees, shrubs, or herbs. And animals, they were divided into those with red blood and those without. Fast forward a bit to the 18th century, and Carolus Linnaeus gave us the two-kingdom system, tossing literally everything into either Plantae or Animalia. But as our microscopes got better, our filing system had to adapt. Which brings us to 1969. That's when R.H. Whitaker proposed the famous 5-kingdom classification, and that forever changed how we organize life.
So, why did Whitaker have to invent a whole new system? Well, honestly, the old two-kingdom system just hopelessly missed the mark. It lazily grouped complex eukaryotes right alongside simple prokaryotes. It threw single-celled and multicellular organisms into the exact same folders. I mean, it even grouped green photosynthetic algae together with fungi, and fungi don't photosynthesize at all. And this brilliantly illustrates why science is a living process. Once we started uncovering the hidden microscopic world, we simply had to update our folders. The 5-kingdom system fixed all this mess by separating life based on strict logical criteria, things like cell structure, body organization, and mode of nutrition. Let's see how this builds into Whitaker's final masterpiece. This table right here is Whitaker's master key. It distills the core criteria that earned these organisms their own very specific folders in the filing cabinet. Notice how only MONERA features prokaryotic cells. Or take cell walls, for example. Fungi get their own distinct category because their walls contain chitin, which is totally different from the cellulose found in Plantae. And then in Animalia, cell walls are entirely absent. By just looking at the cell type, the cell walls, and how these organisms get their food, the chaotic natural world suddenly becomes beautifully ordered.
All right, let's pull open that first drawer. Section 2, MONERA, the extreme survivors in the sole domain of bacteria. Bacteria are hands down the most abundant microorganisms on the entire planet. Seriously, a single handful of soil contains hundreds of them. Because their physical structure is pretty simple, biologists initially just grouped them by shape. We've got the spherical coccus, the rod-shaped bacillus, the comma-shaped vibrio, and the spiral spirillum. But listen, don't let those simple shapes fool you. While their physical form is basic, their metabolic diversity is absolutely massive. Some actually make their own food from sunlight or inorganic substrates, while a vast majority just rely on other organic matter. They are literal chemical powerhouses.
Now, within MONERA, we have a very special group called Archaebacteria, and they are nature's toughest pioneers. They thrive in places you wouldn't believe: boiling hot springs, ultra-salty environments, marshy areas. The crucial point here is that Archaebacteria possess a totally unique cell wall structure. It allows them to withstand environments that would instantly destroy other life forms. They even live in the guts of ruminant animals like cows and buffaloes. In fact, every time those animals produce methane biogas, yep, it's actually these microscopic survivors doing all the heavy lifting.
Moving right along to our next drawer, we have Section 3, Protista, the unpredictable eukaryotes.
I really like to think of this kingdom as kind of the messy drawer in our biological filing cabinet. It contains all the single-celled eukaryotes, but its boundaries aren't always perfectly defined by biologists. It serves as this fascinating, mostly aquatic link between plants, animals, and fungi. To really grasp how incredibly diverse it is, let's look at 2 extreme examples. On one hand, we have diatoms. They have indestructible cell walls embedded with silica. Over billions of years, they've left behind massive deposits of diatomaceous earth,
which we literally use every single day for polishing and filtering our oils and syrups. Pretty helpful, right? But on the other hand, we have dinoflagellates. When red dinoflagellates multiply too rapidly, they cause what we call red tides, releasing toxic levels of chemicals that can completely wipe out local marine life. Both of these are in Protista, which just goes to show you how wild this kingdom can be.
Next up is Section 4, Fungi, nature's unique recyclers and true heterotrophic wonders.
Okay, here is a really surprising fact. Fungi were actually considered plants for a long time. But most fungi are saprophytes. That means they are heterotrophic organisms that absorb soluble organic matter from dead substrates. Because they possess chitin in their cell walls and absolutely do not photosynthesize, Whitaker rightfully gave them their own designated kingdom. Let me ask you this. Why does food eventually go bad when it's left too long in the refrigerator? I mean, you lower the temperature to fight off bacteria, right? Well, eventually, saprophytic fungi will find it. They specialize in breaking down dead organic matter. Without them, our world would literally be buried in undecomposed natural waste.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the physical architecture of fungi. Whether you are looking at a giant toadstool out in the forest or just a tiny patch of mold growing on some old bread, you aren't just looking at a single solid mass. You are actually looking at a mycelium. It's a vast biological network made entirely of long, slender, thread-like structures called hyphae. It's basically an intricate microscopic web of nutrient-absorbing tubes that make up the entire fungal body.
We now arrive at Section 5, the familiar, plants and animals, the eukaryotic giants.
These are the two kingdoms we interact with easily, every single day. In fact, they are so strictly divided that they have been the only constants going all the way back to Linnaeus. Kingdom Plantae features chlorophyll-containing autotrophic organisms with really strong cell walls made of cellulose. Basically, they make their own food. Meanwhile, Kingdom Animalia is entirely heterotrophic, relying directly or indirectly on those plants for food. Animals completely lack cell walls, and that's exactly what allows for complex tissues, locomotion, and those elaborate sensory and neuromotor mechanisms. It's essentially a perfect division of labor in the natural world.
But now, we have to leave the comfort of the 5 kingdoms. Welcome to Section 6, the rule breakers. We are officially entering the biological twilight zone.
As perfect as Whitaker's filing system seems, nature always has a few weird outliers. I want you to genuinely think about this for a second. Would you call a virus living or non-living? This profound little question is exactly why viruses aren't in any of the 5 kingdoms. If we define a living organism as having a true cellular structure, well, then viruses aren't technically alive. They are just inert, crystalline structures just waiting outside a host. The history of discovering these ghosts of the biological world is so dramatic. Back in 1898, M.W. Beijerinck called them contagium vivum fluidum, which means infectious living fluid. Scientists back then were utterly baffled. They took an extract from an infected tobacco plant, passed it through a filter literally designed to catch all known bacteria, and then applied that filtered fluid to a healthy plant. And guess what? The healthy plant still got sick. That's when they realized they were dealing with something entirely new, incredibly tiny, and terribly infectious.
Here is exactly how these acellular rule breakers operate. Viruses contain genetic material, either RNA or DNA, but incredibly, never both, and it's wrapped in a protein coat. They just wait until they enter a host cell, and then they completely hijack the host's machinery to replicate themselves. But it gets weirder. Viroids are even smaller. They were discovered in 1971, and they are just free-floating RNA without any protein coat at all. Yet they still cause plant diseases. And prions, oh man, they don't even have genetic material. They are just abnormally folded proteins that somehow transmit their misfolded shape to normal proteins, causing devastating neurological conditions like mad cow disease. They completely, totally defy our neat, cell-based filing cabinet.
Now, before we finish, I want to end our categorical tour on a slightly lighter note with lichens. They're amazing because they prove that nature doesn't always care about our rigid folders. A lichen is actually a perfect, intimate symbiotic partnership between 2 entirely different kingdoms, algae from Protista and fungi from Kingdom Fungi. The algae prepare the food, while the fungi provide the shelter and absorb the minerals. They are so perfectly blended together you'd swear they were a single organism. And as a cool bonus, they flat out refuse to grow in polluted areas, making them excellent natural pollution indicators.
We have covered a lot of ground today, from ancient Aristotle all the way down to microscopic, mind-bending prions. But I want to leave you with one final provocative question. As our technology and our understanding of evolutionary relationships improve, will the five-kingdom system need to change again in the future? Well, history tells us the answer is almost certainly yes. We already see scientists pushing toward a three-domain, six-kingdom system. The scientific sorting of life is a never-ending, ever-evolving human journey. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I can't wait to explore the next topic with you. Stay curious.